Hi guys, this is Shahid. Welcome back to my tutorials on the basics of web development. In the previous lecture, we have learned the basic stuff about CSS. Today, we will learn some basic stuff about JavaScript. So in order to do that, let me just open the project folder in the Visual Studio Code. So let me just zoom out. And here we were developing in the web development basics folder. So this is all that we have done in our previous lesson. Today we will learn how to add functionality to this HTML and CSS. So in order to add the functionality, we will have to add some JavaScript to our HTML. So we can add JavaScript by adding a script tag here. Let me just zoom in so you can see it better. Script tag, and we can just say type is equal to text by JavaScript. Right? So everything that we code here, anything that we code here will belong to this JavaScript file, right? So everything inside this script tag will belong to this entire file. So that will be the JavaScript for this entire file. Also, there is another way to add the JavaScript, is adding external JavaScript file. So we can just say script, but before that, let me just create the file. So here we just click script.js. This .js represents that this is a JavaScript file. Okay, so what we can do is that we can add script type is equal to text by JavaScript, right? And we can add source. So the source to the file is in the current directory where we have this HTML file. In that directory, we have another file that's named script.js. So this is the reference for the external script. So that script will be added to this HTML file. So let's just test it by adding an alert here. So alert, I am working. So in order to see if it's really working, we just have to open our index.html file. So let me just go to the project directory, desktop, tutorials, web development basics, and open this HTML in our Chrome browser. So let's just add this side by side. So here we have the browser and here we have the code. So as you can see, as I have loaded the file, it just gave alert saying I am working. So it means that our script.js is successfully embedded into our HTML file. So let's just start adding some functionality. So for example, I say let's just add a functionality of a button click. So for example, if I click on button, I will just change the text of this h1 here. So how can we do that? We can just add a button here, button, and we can give it an ID. So for example, button, its ID is click me button, right? So this is its ID. This represents that we are a reference to this button. So here we will add some text. Click me to change text, right? So here we already have an ID. So inside my script file, we will just say document. So document dot get element by ID, right? So we can just say click me button dot on click is equal to function. So that's how we write functions in our JavaScript. So document represents this whole HTML file. So I say that document get element by ID. So as I've already mentioned that these are tags and elements. So these, we can call it tags, we can call it element. So I just say in the document get an element by its ID. So we have added the ID here, which is click me button. So I say dot click me button, so on click. So when someone clicks on this click me button, what it should be doing, it should be just running this function, right? So I can say when someone click on this, it should change the text of heading bunny h1. So what we can do is we can say constant. Const represent the constant, right? So it's actually the reference to this h1 here. So I will just add a reference into this constant, right? So I just say const h1, which is our h1 in the HTML, is equal to, so this h1 is basically the variable name, right? So const h1 is equal to document.getElement by id, which is heading bunny. So we said that when someone clicks on click me button, we have created a reference to this heading bunny here. So we just said, so when someone clicks on this button, what we should be doing, that in that heading bunny dot inner HTML. So we can say that change the inner HTML. So what's inside this is basically the HTML of this current tag, right? So we just said that on the click of this click me button, just change inner HTML of this h1, which is heading bunny, to yeah man you clicked right. Okay, so let me just refresh this, and when I click on this, it will just say yeah man you clicked right. So it means that we have successfully run our first on-click function in our JavaScript file, right? So there are plenty of other things that we can do on our JavaScript file. So the example is that we can change the background of this h1. By how we can change the background, we can just say change this inner HTML and h1.style dot. So in the h1 there is an attribute style, and in that style we have an attribute color. So as we said that color property of the CSS changes the font color, right? So the text color, we just say turn it to black and turn the h1.style.background so to white. So when I click on this, it will change the text color to black and the background color to white. So when I click on this, so it has successfully done that, right? So we can do multiple stuff using this JavaScript. You can also search for the internet by what properties that we can add in the JavaScript for a button. For example, we have an on click here, right? So for example, if we have a text input, right? So let me just remove all this code that we have done in our folder because we are not using it anymore. So let me just remove it here. So we have an empty body, right? So I can just delete this script because we are not using it anymore. Okay, so what we can do is that we can add, let's just say we can create a text input, right, where user will enter a text A or a number A, and another input where user will enter a number B. So we will just click on the button to get the sum of those two numbers, and we will just print the sum on some other paragraph, right? So just add a text box, right? So we can just say input type is equal to text. So these inputs are used to take input from the user. So it means that it will be a text box on the screen. So when I refresh this, you can see that we have a text box where we can write stuff, right? Okay. So we have said that input type is, and we should just give it some ID. So ID is equal to number A, right? We can create a BR. BR is used for like break, so which is basically the line break. So it will appear in the next line. For example, if I just say input type is equal to text and ID is equal to number B, and close this. So you can see it will appear in the new line. So if I remove the BR, they both will just appear on the same line, right? So I will just add a label here saying number A, and another label here which will say number B. So we can just add a break here, right? So we refresh this, you see that we have a text number A and a number B. So we can just add another button here and say give it ID sum. So click me to get the sum, right? So we just add a break here so this appears in the new line, right? And in this paragraph we can just say ID is equal to result. So its ID is result, so whatever the result is, it will appear here in this portion. For example, the result is 20, so it will appear here, right? So let's just do that by adding a script. So we can just say by the click of this button, which is ID sum, so document.query selector, get element by ID of sum, right? So by the on click of this button, what we should be doing, we should just execute a function, and the function will get the value from this input and this input, and will sum it, and also will print the value in this paragraph. So what we have to do, just first take the value of this input. So const value A is equal to document dot get element by ID. So the ID is number A, ID dot value. So for the input types, we have an attribute called value, which is basically the value that we have entered into that input. So we have dot value, so it will just take the value of this ID and it will put it into the variable, this one. So sorry, the constant. So const val B is equal to document dot get element by ID of number B dot value, right? So we can just add a semicolon here, or we don't, so it doesn't matter in JavaScript anymore. Okay, so after that we will just say const result is equal to val A plus val B, right? So we are just adding value A and value B and storing the value in the result. So basically, let me just give an understanding about the strings and numbers here. So if, for example, one is a string, right, and we add it with another string, so the resultant string will be 1. So the strings basically get concatenated when you add them. So when we have a number, so when we do 1 plus 1, that will be added and the result will be 2. So what we have to do, that current value will be in the string format because it's input type text, so it will give the string value. What we will have to do is we will have to parse that string into the number. So what we can do it by parse int, which is parse integer. So parse the value of this value A into an integer and add it with another integer. So parse int, parse the value of this into the integer, and we have stored it in a variable result. So after that we have to print that result in this paragraph. So what we have to do, to add the reference to document dot get element by ID of result, right, dot inner HTML will be our result. So what we are doing is fetching the value from this first input, fetching value from this second input, and on button click we have added a function. So when we click it, it stores their value and sum it and store the value into another variable. After that, it passes that value to the inner HTML of this result paragraph. So let me just refresh the page and just do 10 and give value 10 and just see, click me to get the sum. So you can see that we have got number 20s. For example, if I do 50 and I do 90 and get the sum, so you can see that we have 140 here. So that's what we have coded so far. This is our index.html file. So that's how we add functionality using the JavaScript. So you can search about some more stuff in JavaScript on the internet, because as these are just basic tutorials, so I'm just talking about the basic stuff here. So in the next tutorial, we will learn some advanced things regarding HTML, right? So I will just add some stuff about the HTML in the next tutorial. So let's meet in the next video. Thanks. Bye.